Alrighty guys, it is Qaaman here today, and I'm bringing you another Dragon Ball Super review for episode 21 of Dragon Ball Super, which is called Frieza's Revenge. The Frieza's Army's Malice Strikes Gohan. And in this video, as always in all of my Super reviews, I'm going to review the plot, the action, certain interesting details, my overall impressions, and my most memorable moment of the episode as a whole. So without wasting any more time, let's get straight into this video. So, as I correctly predicted in my episode 21 predictions video about how this episode would focus more along the sides of fighting against Frieza and his henchmen, that's exactly what happened. This episode basically focused on the Z Fighters encountering Frieza's weaker henchmen first, and obviously showing a little pieces of, Goten and Trunks being excited to go enter the fight, which I'll explain more in my predictions, and also talking along the lines of how Goku and Vegeta's training was progressing with Whis. However, what I found interesting about this episode in terms of its plot is it kind of changed throughout the episode. It was basically them fighting against the Frieza soldiers, but once it was pretty clear that, the Frieza soldiers were no match for the Z Fighters, which was obvious, Sashimi got involved and he got killed by his own comrade, or at least member of Frieza's army, which was Tagoma, which really shocked the life out of me because I really did not expect to see that happen. And that basically sets up the next episode, which we're going to see more about, us taking on Tagoma, which obviously I'll talk a lot more in my predictions about that. But in terms of this episode's plot, I would say it was exciting, it was really captivating, and it really, actually included a good mixture of very different things in it. Now, in terms of the action in this episode, I thought it was pretty cool. I definitely liked a lot of the fighting sequences that took place where we see, Tien, Gohan, Master Roshi, Krillin, Piccolo, all of them basically fighting against hordes upon hordes upon hordes of Frieza's soldiers. And what really separated the action in Dragon Ball Super versus Resurrection F is because it was obviously more of it because they could take more time because it's an actual episode series. And I do like the little dialogues that they were adding in between the fight scenes because it made the fighters seem a lot more realistic. Like, you're seeing what's going through their minds, how when Krillin's fighting against the Frieza soldiers, he's easily dodging them, and then he realizes I could take these guys out. And I felt that added a lot more towards the cerebral approach of the actual fights themselves. So in terms of action for this episode, I was pretty entertained. No big fights taking place, but it was definitely interesting to watch the Z Fighters in action. And I will say, it's always fun to watch Master Roshi kicking some ass. So in terms of some interesting details, the first one I wanted to talk about is sashimi. Now, in this instance, it differs from Resurrection F because Sashimi was holding Gohan in a similar manner to how we saw Cell holding Gohan when he was a kid. I thought they were kind of making a reference back to that. And he was actually killed by Tagoma by basically being shot with an energy blast, and I found this kind of weird because that's a huge difference from what we originally saw. And we also see in that same instance that Tagoma had trained with Frieza, which obviously would make sense in terms of Resurrection of F2, because I can also not see Sashimi getting that strong in Resurrection F to be able to hold his own with Piccolo. So, I mean, obviously they didn't show, the flashback of training, with Frieza and Sashimi, even though it should have probably happened in Resurrection F. And now that they actually show that for Tagoma in Dragon Ball Super, I felt that adds a lot more towards the series because now we can kind of get an instance of how they could get that strong. Because in reality, guys, let's be honest, any type of Ginyu Force level fighter, even Frieza Saga level fighter, cannot compete with the Z Fighters at this point. At least Gohan and Piccolo. So that was something that I felt was well clarified. The next interesting detail I wanted to point out really quickly is dealing with Goten and Trunks. And in my opinion, there's a little bit of an inconsistency that Mike from Laughingstock Media pointed out, where once they sensed Tagoma powering up, they decided to go over towards the fight. But this isn't really making any sense because if you think about it, I mean, Goten and Trunks should have been able to sense Frieza's energy, and I would assume even in his base form that Frieza would be stronger than Tagoma, considering the fact that Gohan said Frieza's a lot stronger than before. So with that said, it just doesn't make any sense to me why they wouldn't come as soon as Frieza's there, considering Frieza's that powerful, and not even make an attempt to go. It doesn't make any sense, and it also doesn't make sense why they didn't show up in Resurrection of F. But honestly, we know the true reason. The true reason is that they didn't want to include Goten and Trunks in the movie, and that obviously makes sense. But in terms of logical sense, it doesn't make any sense why they come for Tagoma but not for Frieza. The last interesting detail I wanted to point out is that if you look really carefully, we saw the Ginyu frog at the end of the episode, and this really hypes me up for the upcoming one, which I'm going to do my predictions on, because I feel like having the Ginyu frog there is like, wow, Captain Ginyu is finally going to be aligned with Frieza once again. Like, he's been such an irrelevant character in his frog form, and the fact that he has a chance to come back and, you know, get revenge, after showing his anger all these years and being a frog, I thought that's going to be awesome, and that's really creating a lot of hype for the next episode. And honestly, I would think Ginyu should probably want to switch bodies with Frieza of all people, but anyways, that's another topic for another day. So in terms of impressions, I definitely felt this episode was necessary, and one thing this episode did a lot better than Resurrection of F is I felt that it gave off that whole revenge theme a lot better, because when Frieza was ordering his men to kill Krillin and saying whoever can take him out can get a prize, I felt that was a lot better because we didn't see that in Resurrection F, and if you think about it, that really like shows you how angry Frieza is and how he's ingrained in his soldiers that level of aggression to do anything in their power to take out the Z fighters. And I felt that although Krillin was a lot stronger than the individual Frieza soldier, I felt like that revenge theme was significantly, pointed out a lot more in a slower paced series, and I definitely felt that was a big plus that Dragon Ball Super gave out. So this episode was definitely not wasted, and it gave off a very, very strong impression of revenge. Now, in terms of the most memorable moment of this episode, I would like to say it's when Master Roshi was fighting against the Frieza soldiers and when he broke his little crane, but I'm gonna have to go with when Gohan got shot. This was really shocking. I did not see this coming because we haven't seen a shocking moment like that in a while, and because obviously many of us were probably anticipating that Frieza would probably do it and Gohan would have no problem with the Frieza soldiers, this was a huge shock to me, as of many of you who probably felt the same way. And seeing how Gohan just fell to the ground so lifeless, I was like, wow, like Gohan looked like he almost died literally for a moment there, before Piccolo had to help him out. So that was definitely the most memorable moment of this episode for sure. So guys, that has been our video for today. Overall, I'm going to give this episode 4 stars. I thought it was a very good episode, although it wasn't a great episode. I thought I had a great amount of action mixed in with some interesting changes that they made with like the Ginyu frog and such. I definitely felt like they really emphasized on like the whole revenge, theme in this episode, and I definitely think that adding a big shock factor as showing Gohan getting shot with an energy blast definitely really enticed me to watch this, and it definitely felt different from just rewatching Resurrection of F. So I like this episode. I just felt that it wasn't as big enough as other episodes were in terms of changing the plot to really give it a 5, but it was a very good episode, and I'm very curious to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. So I hope you guys enjoyed this review, and most importantly, over everything else, please remember to rate, comment, and subscribe, and remember, as I always say, to have a great day guys, and stay tuned for my predictions tomorrow.